There's a part of you that remembers everything. It remembers what your mind has tried to forget. It speaks in a language of a racing heart, a knot in your stomach, a tension that never seems to leave your shoulders. You might call it stress or anxiety. But what if it's something deeper, something older? What if these aren't just symptoms, Doom, but signs? Signs of a story your body has been holding on to, waiting, just waiting to be finished. In this journey together, we're going to explore a profound truth that within you lies a deep, innate capacity to heal, not by fighting your past, but by listening to the very wisdom of your body. We'll discover how overwhelming experiences don't have to be a life sentence, and how the key to your transformation has been within you all along. This is the path of waking the tiger. Have you ever watched a nature documentary and seen something that took your breath away? Not just because of the beauty, but because of a deep, primal recognition. A moment that felt familiar in a way you couldn't quite explain. I remember watching one years ago. It was a scene on the African savannah, a herd of impala grazing peacefully in the golden light of a setting sun. They were calm, relaxed, but vigilant. You could see it in the slight twitch of an ear, the occasional lift of a head to sniff the air. They were at home in their world, a part of its rhythm. And then the wind shifted. In an instant their bodies changed. Every muscle tensed. They became still, not a frozen stillness, but a coiled hair-trigger stillness. They were listening, sensing, orienting. They knew. Something had changed. The scent of a predator was on the air. For a few heartbeats, nothing happened. No threat emerged, and so gradually they returned to their grazing. The tension released. They were safe again. This, my friend, is where our story begins. Not in a therapist's office, not in a textbook, but here, on this vast, open plain. Because what we are about to explore is not just a concept of the mind. It's an ancient physical wisdom written into the very fiber of every living creature, and that includes you. This is the first part of our journey through Peter Levine's Waking the Tiger, and this chapter is called Shadows from a Forgotten Past. We're going to look at nature's plan. We're going to ask why look to the wild, and we're going to discover that when it comes to trauma, it's all about energy. So, let's return to that savannah. The cheetah, hidden in the dense shrubbery, seizes its moment. In a blur of spotted fur and explosive power, it leaps, and as if they were one single organism, the herd springs into action, bolting toward the protective thicket at the edge of the wadi. It's a breathtaking dance of life and death, a chase at 70 miles an hour. But one young impala, just for a split second, trips. It recovers, but it's too late. The cheetah is upon it, and at the moment of contact, or just before, something extraordinary happens. The young impala doesn't struggle. It doesn't cry out. It simply falls to the ground, stone still. It's not pretending to be dead. It has entered a profound, altered state that physiologists call the immobility response, or freezing. It's a biological imperative. A last-ditch survival strategy shared by all mammals, including us. For years, we've been taught about the fight-or-flight response, but this third option, this freezing, we've often misunderstood it. In our modern culture, we might see it as weakness, as surrender, as cowardice. But nature doesn't judge it. Nature designed it, and it did so for two profoundly intelligent reasons. First, it's a brilliant deception, playing possum. If the cheetah thinks its prey is already dead, it might drag it to a safe place to eat later, or to its cubs. And in that unguarded moment, the impala can awaken from its trance and make a hasty, miraculous escape. And second, and this is so crucial, in this frozen state, the animal enters a natural anesthesia. It doesn't feel the pain of the predator's claws and teeth. It is a merciful gift from nature, sparing the creature from suffering while its life is taken. But here is the most important part of this entire ancient drama. When the impala does escape, when it finds itself out of danger, it doesn't just get up and trot off as if nothing happened. If you were to watch closely, through binoculars, you would see something subtle, something vital. You would see it begin to shake, to tremble. Little tremors would move through its body, starting in its neck and chest, flowing down into its legs. It would shudder and quake. Its breath might become deep and sighing. And then, when this wave passes, it would literally shake itself off. It would stand, regain its footing, look around, reorient to its world, and then return to its life. Fully, completely, as if the terrifying event had been processed, completed. It doesn't carry the chase with it. It doesn't develop a phobia of tall grass. It doesn't have nightmares about cheetahs for years to come. It discharges the immense survival energy that was mobilized in its body, and it moves on. This is nature's plan. A perfect, elegant cycle. Threat, arousal, defense, discharge, return to normal. So, why do we look to the wild? Why study the impala and the cheetah? Because the key to healing human trauma is not first in our thoughts, but in our physiology, our bodies. When we face an overwhelming threat, we humans use the very same immobility response. The parts of our brain and nervous system that govern this are the primitive instinctual parts, the parts we share with reptiles and mammals. We call it the reptilian brain. It's not under our conscious control. It's a deep biological program that runs automatically. Animals in the wild are intimate with their survival resources. They sense what they need to do, and they do it. They are fluid. They are instinctual, but we humans, we have this magnificent complex thinking brain, the neocortex. It's what allows us to create art and science and language. But when faced with a life-threatening situation, this brilliant brain can sometimes become confused. It can override our instinctual impulses. It can second-guess. That internal conflict, that moment of confusion between our instinct to run and our thought to stand our ground, that confusion sets the stage for what Peter Levine calls the Medusa complex. Just like in the Greek myth, when we stare death in the face with confusion, we can turn to stone. We freeze in fear, and that frozen energy, that's where the symptoms of trauma begin to form. It's not the event itself that causes long-term trauma. It's what happens to the energy that was mobilized for that event. Let's make this tangible. Let's go back to that impala. Its nervous system as it flees is supercharged, running at 70 miles an hour. Then it collapses into immobility. From the outside, it's motionless. But on the inside, its nervous system is still roaring at 70 miles an hour. It's like flooring the accelerator of your car, while simultaneously slamming on the brake. The engine is screaming. The wheels are locked. The difference between that inner racing and the outer stillness creates a powerful, turbulent whirlwind of energy inside the body, a tornado. That tornado, that is the birthplace of traumatic symptoms. To help you feel the sheer power of this energy, imagine you are making love with someone you deeply love. You are on the very verge of climax, a peak of intense, pleasurable, biological arousal. And suddenly, some outside force stops you. Abruptly. Feel that jolt. That sense of intense, suspended energy with nowhere to go? Now multiply that feeling by 100. That might bring you close to the amount of raw, life force energy that is aroused in a genuine, life-threatening experience. A threatened human, or that impala, must discharge all that mobilized energy. If it doesn't, that energy doesn't just vanish. It stays trapped in the body, it persists. And the body, in its wisdom, will do anything to contain this unruly, undischarged force. So, it forces the formation of symptoms, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, chronic pain, hypervigilance. These are all the organism's creative, if ultimately debilitating ways of corralling this trapped energy. Animals in the wild instinctively discharge this energy and seldom develop long-term symptoms. We humans, we are not as adept. We get stuck. We become like a moth drawn to a flame, unknowingly creating situations in our lives where we have the possibility to release this energy, but we often lack the tools and the understanding to do so safely. And so, we remain trapped in the maze, riddled with fear, never quite feeling at home in ourselves or in our world. But here is the great hope, the beautiful truth at the heart of this chapter. The same immense volcanic energies that create the symptoms of trauma, when they are properly engaged, when they are gently and safely released, they can transform the trauma. They can propel us into new heights of healing, of mastery, even of wisdom. Trauma resolved is not just the absence of pain, it is a great gift. It returns us to the natural world of ebb and flow. It restores harmony, love, and compassion. It gives us back our lives, but with a deeper, more profound understanding. The shadow from our forgotten past is not a curse. It is a memory of a natural instinct that is still alive within you. The impala that shakes itself free is not just an animal on a screen. It is a reflection of a capacity that you too possess. Your body, in its profound and ancient wisdom, knows how to complete the cycle. It knows how to shake and tremble and release the frozen moments of your life. It knows how to wake the sleeping tiger of your own vibrant, unbound energy. And that is where our healing begins. In the quiet of the night, a child screams in her sleep, her body rigid, drenched in a cold sweat. Her parents rush in, but they can't wake her. She's trapped in a world of pure terror, a world they can't see. The next day, a doctor calls them just nightmares, but the parents know deep in their bones it's something more. A soldier returns home from a conflict he doesn't want to talk about. The sound of a car backfiring on a sunny afternoon sends him diving behind the sofa, his heart hammering against his ribs as if it might break free. He's home, he's safe, but his body is still on the battlefield. What is this invisible force that can reach across time and space, stealing the peace from a child's sleep, or pulling a man back into a war that's long since ended? This is the mystery we're stepping into today. The mystery of trauma. It's a word we use so often, but do we truly understand its nature? In this chapter, we'll explore what trauma really is. We'll witness a heartbreaking event in a town called Chowchilla. We'll delve into the core of this mystery, and we'll see the first beautiful glimmer of hope, the moment Peter Levine calls waking the tiger. So, what is trauma? Officially, it's often defined as an event outside the range of usual human experience, but that definition can feel so distant, so clinical, because is a serious car accident or a sudden loss or a frightening medical procedure really outside the range of usual human experience? For many of us, these devastating moments are, tragically, a part of life. Perhaps a better way to understand trauma isn't by the event itself, but by the footprint it leaves on the human soul. It's less about what happened and more about how the experience lives on inside the person. Let me share a story with you. It's about a mother playing ball with her 5-year-old son in the park. He throws the ball a long way, and as she goes to retrieve it, he spots another ball and darts into a busy street. As she bends down, she hears the screech of tires, long, loud, and horrifying. She knows, with a certainty that turns her blood to ice, that her son has been hit. She describes her heart falling into the pit of her stomach, the blood in her veins seeming to drain down to her feet, her legs, heavy as lead, carrying her toward the gathering crowd. She pushes through and collapses on her son's still bloody body. Frantically, she tries to wipe away the blood, to pat his torn clothes back into place, her mind screaming, "No, this isn't happening. Breathe, Joey, breathe." And then she describes a numbness creeping over her. She feels herself pulling away from the scene, going through the motions, but she can't feel any more. That shift, that pulling away, That is the unmistakable feel of trauma beginning to take hold. It's a primal, biological response to being utterly and completely overwhelmed. To understand this mystery more deeply, we travel to a sweltering summer day in 1976 in Chowchilla, California. A day that would forever change 26 children. They were on their school bus when they were kidnapped, shoved into dark vans, driven to an abandoned quarry, and buried alive in an underground vault. They were trapped in that dark, suffocating hole for 30 hours. Imagine the terror, the confusion, the sheer, overwhelming helplessness. Eventually, they managed to dig their way out. They were taken to a hospital, treated for their physical injuries, and sent home. The doctors, seeing no broken bones, declared them all right. A psychiatrist later told the parents that perhaps only one of the 26 children might have a psychological problem. That was the understanding at the time. But a psychiatrist named Lenore Terr began a follow-up study 8 months later. She found the reverse was true. Nearly all of the children showed severe long-term effects, recurring nightmares, violent tendencies, a profound inability to function in their personal and social lives. The nightmare of the buried trailer had become a nightmare they now lived every single day. But here is where the mystery deepens. Among those 26 children, there was one, a 14-year-old boy named Bob Barkley, who was less severely affected. Why? What was different about Bob's experience? When the ceiling of their underground prison began to collapse, most of the children were frozen in shock, almost unable to move. They had to be ushered out like zombies. But Bob Barkley didn't freeze. In that moment of ultimate crisis, he enlisted another boy, and they began to dig. He led the escape. He stayed actively mobilized, engaged in the task of freeing himself and the others. Bob was able to move, to flow through the terror, while the others were completely overwhelmed and incapacitated by it. This is one of the most puzzling aspects of trauma. Why do some people facing the same terrifying event become debilitated for life, while others seem to emerge, shaken, but fundamentally okay? The answer to that question began to reveal itself in a most unexpected way in the office of a young Peter Levine with a woman named Nancy. Nancy suffered from such intense panic attacks that she was unable to leave her house alone. A psychiatrist referred her to Levine, thinking some relaxation techniques might help. But when Levine naively tried to guide her into relaxation, something terrifying happened. Nancy went into a full-blown panic attack right there in his office. She appeared paralyzed, unable to breathe. Her heart pounded wildly, then seemed to almost stop. Levine, feeling his own fear rise, somehow managed to stay present with her. And in that heightened state, he had a fleeting vision, a tiger jumping toward them. Swept along by the experience, he exclaimed, "You are being attacked by a large tiger. See the tiger as it comes at you. Run toward that tree, climb it and escape." To his astonishment, Nancy's legs started trembling in running movements. She let out a blood-curdling scream, and then she began to shake. She shook and sobbed in full-bodied, convulsive waves for almost an hour. In the wake of this storm, a memory surfaced. When Nancy was 3 years old, she had been strapped to a table for a tonsillectomy. The anesthesia was ether, which made her feel trapped, suffocated, and unable to move. She had terrifying hallucinations. That little girl, strapped down and overwhelmed, had frozen in terror. Her body had resigned itself to a state where escape was impossible, and 20 years later, in a crowded exam room, that frozen energy had erupted as a severe panic attack. But in Levine's office, something miraculous had happened. It wasn't the dramatic reliving of the memory that was catalytic. It was the discharge of energy. The image of the tiger had awoken her instinctual, responsive self. Her legs, making those running movements, were completing the escape that her 3-year-old body could not. Nancy had done what Bob Barkley had done in that underground vault. She had actively mobilized. She had flowed out of her passive, frozen immobility and into a successful, active escape. Long after the original trauma, She awakened her capacity for heroism. This was the first glimmering. The tiger was waking. Nancy left that session feeling, in her own words, like she had herself again. The anxiety attack she experienced that day was her last. The mystery of trauma we begin to see is not so much about the story of what happened. It's about the story of what didn't happen. The escape that wasn't run, the fight that wasn't fought, the tremble that was suppressed, the biological response that was left unfinished. Trauma is a physiological event that gets stuck in the body. The energy mobilized for survival becomes frozen in a state of suspended animation. And the symptoms, the anxiety, the panic, the numbness, are the body's cry for completion. They are a plea for that energy to finally be allowed to move, to discharge, to complete the cycle that was so brutally interrupted. The hopeful insight from Nancy's story and from Bob Barkley's is that we don't necessarily have to dredge up old memories and relive their emotional pain to heal. In fact, that can sometimes be re-traumatizing. What we need to do is to arouse our deep physiological resources and consciously utilize them. We need to give the body a chance to complete what it started. The urge to fight, to flee, to freeze, and then to discharge. That urge is still there, held in the very tissues and nerves of your body, waiting for a safe moment to finish. It holds the imprint of the helplessness, yes, but it also holds the blueprint for the empowerment. The mystery of trauma is that it makes us feel broken, as if a vital part of us has been lost forever. But the glimmer of hope, the waking of the tiger, shows us that this is not true. That vital part is not lost. It's simply waiting, waiting for the right key to turn in the lock, waiting for the courage to tremble, to shake, to finally and fully come back to life. If you walk through an old forest, a really ancient one, you'll see them, trees that have been there for centuries. And if you look closely, you'll see that they are not perfect. They are full of character, a gnarl here, a burl there, a limb that grows at a strange, beautiful angle. If you could see inside, you would find the story of that tree's life, the scar from a long-ago lightning strike, now grown over, the wound from a winter storm, now a unique swirl in the grain. The tree didn't erase these injuries. It didn't pretend they never happened. It grew around them. It incorporated them into its very being. And in doing so, it became stronger, more resilient, more uniquely itself. This is a powerful mirror for our own lives, especially when we talk about wounds that can heal. We've been exploring the mysterious landscape of trauma, and in this chapter, we come to a profound shift in perspective. What if the symptoms you carry are not signs of a permanent disease, but are in fact evidence of a profound intelligence within you, trying to find its way back to wholeness? What if trauma is not a life sentence but a dis-ease, a profound discomfort that holds within it the very seeds of its own healing? That's the journey we're on today, into the heart of wounds that can, and do, heal. So often, when we think of trauma, we think of something that breaks us, something that leaves a permanent crack in our foundation. We use language of being damaged goods or broken beyond repair. This view is not just disheartening, it's fundamentally inaccurate. Think of that tree. It was injured, yes, but it continued to grow. The wound became a part of its history, but it did not stop the tree from reaching for the sun, from sinking its roots deep into the earth, from becoming a majestic home for birds and insects. The wound became relative. It didn't disappear, but it was integrated. This is so different from how we often approach emotional and psychological wounds. We tend to see them as foreign objects that must be surgically removed, or as corrupted files that must be deleted. We search and search for the traumatic memory, convinced that if we can just find it and relive it with enough pain, we can be free of it. But what if that endless search is like constantly picking at a scab, never allowing the skin underneath to truly knit back together? What if the healing doesn't come from the pain of reliving, but from the gentle, physiological completion of a process that was interrupted? Peter Levine's work suggests that traumatic symptoms are, at their core, incomplete physiological responses suspended in fear. They are frozen moments of time, packets of immense survival energy that were mobilized but never used. The body prepared to run, to fight, to scream, and then nothing. That energy got locked in place. I want to tell you a simple story. It's about a bird and a window pane. A child is playing in the yard when a small bird, mistaking the reflection of the sky for the real thing, flies directly into the window. There's a soft thud. The bird falls to the ground. It lies there, completely still. The child's first instinct is to run over to pick up the bird, to help. She cups the tiny feathered body in her warm hands. For a few moments, the bird is motionless. Then something begins to happen. It starts to tremble. A slight, almost imperceptible shudder runs through its body. It begins to stagger, to try to regain its balance. It looks around, reorienting itself to the world. If the child is patient, if she doesn't try to pet it or interfere, but simply provides the safe, warm container of her hands, the bird will continue this process. It will tremble and shake, discharging the shock of the impact from its tiny nervous system. And then, in a moment that feels like a small miracle, it will right itself, hop from her hand, and fly away, completely free. It will not be traumatized. But if the child, out of love and concern, tries to stroke the bird the moment it begins to show signs of life, she interrupts the process. She propels the bird back into shock. And if this discharge process is disturbed again and again, the bird may die, not from the impact, but from the overwhelm of its own helplessness, from energy it could not release. We are not so different. The trembling, the shaking, the waves of warmth or cold, these are the body's innate language of discharge. They are how we, like the bird, shake off the shock and return to life. This is where a medical view of trauma as a disease can sometimes lead us astray. There's a prevailing belief in some circles that trauma is an irreversible brain disease, that victims may never be the same biologically. And while the intention behind this research is to take trauma seriously, the effect of this belief can be one of profound hopelessness. It frames the human being as a broken machine with faulty wiring, in need of a chemical fix to manage the symptoms. Now, medication can be a vital tool for stability, a life raft in a stormy sea. But if we use it to permanently suppress the body's natural discharge mechanisms, the trembling, the shaking, the emotional waves, we are, in a sense, holding the bird still and preventing it from flying. The renowned neurologist and author Oliver Sacks wrote about a mathematician who had a weekly migraine cycle. For days, he would build up stress and agitation until he had a full-blown migraine attack. After the attack passed, he would experience a creative, hopeful rebirth. He felt refreshed, rejuvenated, and did his best work. When Dr. Sacks used medication to cure the man of his migraines, he lamented that he had also cured him of his mathematics. The creativity disappeared along with the pathology. The migraine, as debilitating as it was also a form of physiological catharsis, a release valve for the built-up energy in his system. Trauma is a disease, a profound lack of ease. It is the body stuck in a loop, trying to regain the equilibrium that was so violently taken from it. The symptoms are not the enemy. They are a distorted cry for help from a system that knows deep down how to heal itself. Healing, then, is not about a dramatic catharsis. It's not about fighting the symptoms. It is about creating the conditions of safety and support, like the gentle warmth of the child's hands for the bird, that allow the body to complete what it started to do all those years ago. It's about learning to listen to the subtle whispers of sensation and having the courage to let a little tremor happen, to feel a wave of heat without panic, to allow a tear to fall without a story attached to it. It's in these tiny, physiological moments that the frozen energy of the past begins to thaw. The tree does not hate its scars. It wears them as a testament to its survival. Your wounds, too, can heal, not by disappearing, but by being woven into the fabric of who you are. They can become sources of depth, of empathy, of a unique kind of strength. The energy that is bound up in your symptoms is not there to torment you. It is there because your body, in its infinite wisdom, is still trying to protect you. It is still waiting for the signal that the danger has passed. It is still waiting for the safe moment to finally and completely stand up, shake itself off, and fly. There is a moment after a devastating event where the world you knew simply vanishes. The ground beneath your feet, once so solid and reliable, is gone. The familiar landmarks of your inner life, your sense of safety, your trust in your own body, your feeling of being at home in the world, have disappeared into a fog. You find yourself in a strange new land, a land where the rules have changed, where a sound as simple as a car door slamming can feel like a threat, where the feeling of your own heartbeat can send a jolt of panic through your system. It's a disorienting, frightening place. And the worst part? Everyone around you seems to be living in the old world, expecting you to act as if you're still there with them. This is the landscape we are exploring today, a chapter titled, A Strange New Land. We'll see why trauma is not a life sentence. We'll walk through the unsettling reality of this new territory. And we'll understand why the well-meaning advice to just get on with your life can feel so isolating. We'll look at what this traumatized reality truly feels like, who is most vulnerable, and the surprisingly common causes of this profound shift. So, let us begin with the most important truth to hold on to. Trauma is not a life sentence. The symptoms can be bizarre and terrifying, flashbacks that feel more real than the present moment, panic attacks that come out of nowhere, a rage that seems to erupt from a deep unknown well, insomnia, depression, a body that feels like it's constantly at war with itself. It is no wonder that people who experience this feel they've been pushed to the edge of sanity. But these symptoms, as compelling as they are not a permanent state of being. They are the signposts of a nervous system that has been overwhelmed and is now stuck in a loop, trying desperately to protect you. They are a language, a desperate, coded communication from a body that is trying to find its way back to safety. Understanding this is the first step in learning the map of this strange new land. And what is this land like? To understand it, we have to travel back in time. Imagine our ancient ancestors. Their existence was intimately tied to the natural world. Every day, every minute held the potential for life-threatening danger. Their nervous systems evolved to be exquisitely tuned for this, to respond to threat with immense power and full-bodied intensity, to feel the exhilaration of the chase, the surge of power in a successful defense, the deep, satisfying relief of survival. That powerful primal capacity is still within us. It's woven into the very fabric of our biology, but modern life offers few healthy outlets for it. Our survival today depends more on our ability to think, to analyze, to sit still, than on our ability to physically respond. And so we have become separated from our instinctual animal selves. We exist in a kind of limbo, not quite fully human in our connection to spirit and reason, and not quite animal in our connection to our bodies and instincts. This separation is what makes us so vulnerable to trauma. Our nervous systems are still wired for the savannah, but we live in a world of traffic jams and deadlines. When a threat occurs, this ancient survival energy is mobilized with incredible force, but in our modern context, there is often nowhere for it to go. It becomes trapped, and that trapped energy creates the strange new land of traumatic symptoms. The statistics of this land are staggering. It estimated that as many as 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men have experienced significant trauma. It's in the lives of veterans, of survivors of abuse, of those who have been in accidents, and in those who have witnessed violence. But it's also hidden in plain sight. In the 10 to 15% of adults who suffer from panic attacks and unexplained anxiety, in the countless people who go to doctors with mysterious pains that are labeled psychosomatic. What we don't know about this process can indeed hurt us. When we don't understand that these symptoms have a biological, physiological root, we jump to the wrong conclusions. We think we are going crazy. We feel shame that we can't just get over it. We face the frustration of mounting medical bills and tests that find nothing wrong, leaving us feeling like hypochondriacs. This lack of understanding adds a second layer of suffering on top of the original pain. And the reality for a person living in this land is one of profound isolation. One person described it like this: "I don't know of one thing I done to fear. I fear getting out of bed in the morning. I fear walking out of my house. I have great fears of death. Not that I will die someday, but that I am going to die within the next few minutes." This is the constant humming background anxiety that defines the traumatized person's reality. It is a personal hell that feels inescapable. And into this reality comes the chorus from the old world: "Get on with your life. Pull yourself together. It's over now, just forget about it." This message, so common in our culture, is a form of mutual denial. It's a lack of tolerance for the profound vulnerability that trauma exposes. This pressure to adjust too quickly, to grin and bear it, is like asking someone with a broken leg to run a marathon. It not only doesn't help, it can actively prevent the healing process from beginning. So, who ends up in this strange new land? Why are some people traumatized by an event that others seem to shake off? It's not a sign of weakness. It's a complex interplay of factors. The event itself, how threatening, how long it lasted, how often it occurred. The context of your life at the time. Were you supported by friends and family, or were you already stressed, tired, and isolated? Your physical characteristics and age play a role. An event that is overwhelming to an infant, like being left alone in a cold room, might be only mildly uncomfortable to an adult who can put on a sweater or complain. Perhaps most importantly, it's about your learned and internal resources. Did you have an experienced sense that you could meet danger? Did your environment provide potential safety, a place to hide, a person to help, a way out? And were you able to access your innate action plans, those instinctual responses, like the woman who boldly walked toward her potential attacker, startling him into retreat? When these resources are unavailable or overwhelmed, the stage is set for trauma. And the causes are more varied and common than we might think. It's not just combat or severe abuse. It can be a childhood surgery, where a child is strapped down and terrified by the mask of anesthesia. It can be a fall, a serious illness, a difficult birth, or even high levels of stress in the womb. It can be witnessing violence or the sudden loss of a loved one. One father told a story of his son's minor knee surgery. When the boy woke from the anesthesia, he was in a drug-induced nightmare, thrashing, screaming, "Am I alive?" and staring at his own father with the eyes of a wild animal, not knowing who he was. They took him home, but his fear continued. The father, feeling helpless, did what many of us do. He bought his son a toy, hoping to make it better, not understanding the deep physiological shock that had taken hold. This is the strange new land. It is a real physiological country, not a fictional one. But here is the hope, the compass that can guide you home. It is a land you can leave. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are a human animal whose ancient survival instincts have been activated and, for a time, have become stuck. The path home is not through fighting the symptoms, but through understanding their language. It's about gently, safely, helping your nervous system to complete the cycle that was interrupted, to discharge the energy, to shake off the shock, to finally and fully return to the world you thought you had lost forever. The strange new land does not have to be your permanent address. It is a place of passage, not a prison. And the journey back begins with a single compassionate step, the understanding that what you are experiencing has a name, and more importantly, it has a path toward healing. There is an old understanding of illness, one that whispers to us from the very dawn of human history. It's an understanding that when a person is shattered by an overwhelming experience, a part of them can go missing. Their spirit, their soul, their vital essence. It can flee the body, seeking refuge from a pain that is too much to bear. In many ancient and shamanic cultures, this was not a metaphor. It was the most widespread and damaging cause of illness. They called it the rape of the soul, and the healer's task, the shaman's sacred duty, was to journey into the spirit world, to find that lost soul, and to coax it, to call it, to sing it back home into the body of the one who was suffering. This might sound like a primitive superstition, a story from a forgotten time, but listen to the language of trauma survivors today. I felt like my father stole my soul when he abused me. After that surgery, I felt like a part of me never came back from the anesthesia. It was as if I left my body during the accident, and I haven't been able to fully return. The words are different, but the experience is the same. A profound disconnection, a feeling of being fractured, of no longer being whole. This is where our path turns toward healing and community. In this chapter, we explore how we begin to call the spirit back to the body. We'll look at the profound wisdom in shamanic approaches. We'll see how Peter Levine's method of somatic experiencing offers a modern pathway. And most importantly, we'll acknowledge the courageous first step of admitting the need to heal. And we'll begin a simple practice to welcome ourselves back home. The shamanic healer did not work alone. The entire community was involved. Drumming, chanting, dancing, all of it created a container of sound and support, a resonant field that made it safe for the soul to return. The healing was as much for the community as it was for the individual, because a fractured person created a fracture in the whole. And at the climax of these rituals, the beneficiary would almost always shake and tremble, the same trembling we see in the animal that escapes the predator. The same trembling that Nancy experienced in Peter Levine's office. It is the universal physical sign of release, of the bound-up energy of terror finally being allowed to move through and out of the body. These cultures understood something we have largely forgotten, that deep interconnection and social cohesion are necessary requirements for healing trauma. We cannot do it in total isolation. Now, the approach in this book, Somatic Experiencing is not a shamanic practice, but it honors the same profound truth. One crucial difference is the belief that each of us has a powerful capacity to participate in our own healing. We can, with the right tools and support, learn to retrieve our own souls. We don't necessarily need an intermediary to journey for us. But we absolutely need the support, the warmth, the welcoming committee of friends, family and community to make the journey back feel safe. This leads us to the first and often most difficult step, acknowledging the need to heal. In our modern culture, we often conflate strength with endurance. We admire the stiff upper lip. We see it as heroic to carry on, regardless of the inner cost. We use our powerful, rational minds to convince everyone and even ourselves that we came through a terrible event with nary a scratch. But this show of strength is often an illusion. It's like building a beautiful, sturdy house on top of a fissure in the earth. On the surface, everything looks fine, but underneath, the tremors continue. The incomplete responses frozen in our nervous systems are like indestructible time bombs. And until we find the tools to gently dismantle them, we will continue to have unexplained explosions in our lives. Outbursts of rage, collapses into depression, mysterious illnesses. Real heroism is not about suppression. It is about having the courage to openly acknowledge our experiences, to say, "This happened to me, and it hurt me, and I need to tend to the wound." This vulnerability is not weakness, it is the ultimate strength. It is the decision to stop carrying the weight alone. So let us begin. Let us start the process of calling the spirit back to the body. The disconnection between body and soul is one of the most profound effects of trauma. Many people report feeling numb, disembodied, as if they are living a few inches behind their own skin. So the first practice is a simple, gentle way to re-inhabit yourself, to reawaken the sense of being in a body, with skin that can feel. I'm going to suggest a simple exercise. It requires one thing: a pulsing shower head. The initial small investment is well worth it. For about 10 minutes each day, take a gentle, pulsing shower. Set the water to a cool or slightly warm temperature, nothing too intense. And as the water pulses against your skin, put your full awareness into that rhythm. Hold the backs of your hands to the shower head and just feel it. Then your palms, your wrists, then both sides of your face, your shoulders, under your arms. Be sure to include every part of your body: your head, your forehead, the back of your neck, your chest, your back, your legs, your pelvis, your hips, your ankles, the soles of your feet. Pay attention to the sensation in each area, even if it feels blank or numb or even painful. As you do this, say quietly, either out loud or in your mind, "This is my head. I welcome you back. These are my feet. I welcome you back." You are not just cleaning your body, you are greeting it. You are acknowledging its existence part by part. You are sending a message of welcome to every cell. Another way to do this is to gently and briskly slap different parts of your body, again, with that same welcoming awareness. This is not a magical cure. It is a beginning, a ritual of your own making. It is you, building your own welcoming committee, your own community of one, to coax your spirit back into its rightful home. Healing from trauma is, at its heart, a process of reunion. It is the mending of the split between your body and your soul. It is the understanding that you were never meant to carry this burden alone, and that the community, whether it is a circle of drummers, a loving family, a supportive friend, or simply your own two hands offering kindness to your skin, is the ground in which healing takes root. You are not just fixing a broken machine. You are calling a lost part of yourself home, and every welcoming word, every gentle pulse of water is a love song to your own spirit, inviting it to return. In the ancient Greek myth, there was a creature named Medusa, a gorgon, with snakes for hair. Her gaze was so terrifying that anyone who looked directly into her eyes would be instantly turned to stone. She was the embodiment of a fear so absolute, so paralyzing, that to confront it head-on was to be frozen forever. The hero Perseus was tasked with defeating her, but he was wise. He knew he could not look at her directly, so he used his polished shield as a mirror. By looking only at her reflection, he was able to navigate the danger, approach her, and ultimately triumph. Trauma is our Medusa. Its direct gaze is paralyzing. If we try to confront it head-on, to battle our memories and symptoms with sheer force of will, we often find ourselves seized by the same immobilizing fear. The memory of the event itself can turn us back to stone. So how do we conquer a monster we cannot look at directly? We learn to use a shield. We work with its reflection. This chapter, in Trauma's Reflection, is about finding that shield and learning to see clearly within it. We will explore the myth of Medusa. We will discover a powerful inner resource called the felt sense, and we will learn the gentle art of letting the body speak its mind. We will learn to listen to the whispers of our organism, to understand its unique language of sensation and rhythm. This is not a path of confrontation, but a path of gentle, curious discovery. When Perseus finally slew Medusa, something beautiful and powerful emerged from her body. Pegasus, the winged horse, and a warrior with a golden sword. This is a stunningly perfect metaphor for healing. The golden sword symbolizes absolute truth, clarity, and the ultimate resourcefulness of the hero. The horse represents our instinctual, grounded body, and the wings speak of transformation, of rising above our earthbound struggles, of finding a new freedom. Together, they represent the very resources we discover when we learn to work with trauma's reflection rather than staring directly into its eyes. So, what is this shield? What is the reflective surface that allows us to navigate this inner terrain without being frozen in fear? It is something called the felt sense. The felt sense is not a thought. It's not an emotion. It's a physical experience. It's the medium through which you experience the totality of your being in any given moment. It's the subtle, ever-shifting landscape of sensation inside you. Think of it this way. When you watch a beautiful image on a screen, you are not seeing the image itself. You are seeing thousands of tiny individual dots of light called pixels. If you focused on just one pixel, you would miss the entire picture. The beautiful image emerges from the relationship between all of them. In the same way, when you hear your favorite piece of music, you are not hearing individual notes. You are experiencing the whole melody, the emotion it evokes, the memory it stirs. Your felt sense is the beautiful image. It is the whole symphony. It is the unified experience of your living, breathing body that understands the nuances of its world through its responses. It blends together the input from your five senses with the internal awareness of your muscles, your tensions, your temperature, your energy. It's how you know you feel comfortable in a chair, not by analyzing the chair, but by feeling the overall sensation of comfort in your body. Most of us live our lives completely disconnected from this sense. We are taught to live in our heads, to analyze, to calculate. We are never taught to feel the stream of our own inner experience. But for a traumatized person, reconnecting with the felt sense is like being given a map in a foreign land. It is the portal through which we can find the reflections of our trauma, not the terrifying event itself, but the frozen energy it left behind, and gently, gently begin to unbind it. So how do we let the body speak its mind? We must learn to listen to the organism. And the first rule of listening is gentleness. Never force it. This is powerful, instinctual material. If you feel overwhelmed, you slow down. You are learning a new language, the native language of your reptilian brain, the language of sensation. You don't need to interpret, analyze, or dredge up old memories. You simply notice. You become curious. Information will come to you in the form of words, pictures, insights, and emotions, but they will always be accompanied by another layer of sensations. A tightness in your chest, a fluttering in your stomach, a feeling of warmth in your hands, a sense of heaviness or lightness. The organism communicates in metaphors. A sensation might feel fuzzy or jagged, or like a block of ice, or like a tangled knot. It's important not to take this literally. There isn't actually a knot inside you. It just feels that way. This is the body's poetic way of describing the quality of the energy trapped within. This is especially important when powerful images or what feel like memories arise. The energetic forces in trauma are so immense that the body might communicate them through horrifying imagery. A person might see images that feel like memories of abuse or torture. But sometimes the message is not "this happened," but "this sensation you are feeling right now feels like the terror of rape," or feels like the helplessness of torture. The actual cause could have been a medical procedure, a car accident, or a childhood betrayal. The sensation itself is the valuable guide. How does it feel? And how does it change? This brings us to the final and perhaps most beautiful aspect of this process: rhythm. You can't push a river. It flows at its own pace. Our physiological phenomena occur in cycles and rhythms. The healing of trauma is not a sudden event. It is a rhythmic process of release. A sensation will transform as you hold it in your awareness. It might change from a sharp pain to a dull ache, from a cold numbness to a wave of tingling warmth. It will do so at its own pace. This rhythm is the natural biological tempo of healing. It is much slower than the frantic pace of our modern lives. In fact, one of the reasons trauma develops is that we don't give these natural biological rhythms the time they need to reach completion. Becoming attuned to these rhythms, the gentle ebb and flow of your own inner sensations, is an act of profound respect for your organism. It is how you cooperate with your body's innate wisdom, rather than trying to dominate it. The mystery of trauma is that it makes us feel fractured, disconnected from ourselves. But the felt sense is the thread that leads us back to wholeness. It is the reflection in the shield that shows us not only the face of the monster, but the path around it. It shows us that within us, waiting to be born, is the winged horse of transformation and the golden sword of our own unshakable truth. You do not have to stare your trauma in the face. You only have to learn to look gently at its reflection and listen to the quiet, rhythmic wisdom of your own body. It has been waiting all this time to speak to you. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a lizard. It's basking on a sun-warmed rock, perfectly still. An insect crawls within reach. In a movement too fast to truly see, the lizard's tongue flicks out. The insect is gone. The lizard didn't stop to think. It didn't wonder if it was hungry or if the insect was clean. It didn't consult a calendar or a clock. It simply acted. It ate. Just as it will sleep, reproduce, flee from danger, or freeze in an instant, all driven by a deep, ancient and flawless instinct. This is the world of the animal, and it is a world that still lives, breathes, and operates deep within you. In this chapter, we journey into the heart of the animal experience. We'll see that the animals do it too. They navigate threat and recovery with an innate grace we have forgotten. We'll learn why, when the reptilian brain speaks, we must listen. We'll explore what it means to be one with nature, to be attuned to our environment like a native tracker. We'll understand the vital orienting response, the primal choice to flee, fight, or freeze. And most importantly, we'll witness the beautiful, simple secret of the return to normal activity. This is not about becoming primitive. It is about remembering a fundamental part of who we are. Of all the species on this planet, only one routinely develops long-term, debilitating traumatic symptoms: the human. You don't see impalas in the wild with post-traumatic stress. You don't see zebras having panic attacks a year after a narrow escape from a lion. This leads to a profound question: what are the animals doing that we are not? Their survival responses are normal, healthy, and time-limited. When a wild animal experiences a life-threatening event, it moves through the shock and recovers. Its reactions are fluid and complete. They do not become chronic. The difference is that we, with our magnificent, complex thinking brains, have learned to override this natural recovery process. Our bodies get the message to run, to fight, to freeze, and then to discharge. But our minds often get in the way. We feel the tremble begin to rise, and we shame it into silence. We feel the surge of primal energy, and we lock it down with logic. We interrupt the cycle. An animal's nervous system is not damaged by trauma. It is simply frozen in a kind of suspended animation. And to thaw it, we must reconnect with the part of us that is still animal. We must learn the language of the reptilian brain. This most primitive part of our brain is the home of our instincts. It is encoded with the basic plans for all our survival behaviors. It controls the involuntary changes that regulate our vital functions. And it does not speak in words or thoughts. It speaks in one language and one language only: sensation. When the reptilian brain speaks, it is not offering a conscious choice. It is issuing a biological command. It is the force that makes you duck before you consciously register the low-hanging branch. It is the instinct that makes a woman, sensing danger, walk boldly toward a potential attacker instead of running, startling him into confusion and ensuring her safety. To ignore this voice is to cut ourselves off from our deepest healing resources. Animals live in a state of exquisite attunement. They are one with their environment. A jellyfish pulses and surges its way through the ocean, moving as one with the fluid medium that is not much different from its own body. The smallest change in its surroundings generates an immediate response. For a human, this experience of attunement is expressed through the felt sense. It's that intangible knowing, that gut feeling. Consider a native tracker in the wild. He doesn't just follow footprints, he becomes one with the animal he is tracking. He knows from the drift of the snow where it slept. He knows from the bend of a grass blade how tired it was. He feels instinctively which way it has gone. His safety and success depend on his ability to remain present, alert, yet relaxed, tuned in to the subtlest signals both outside and within himself. This state of optimal awareness is governed by a fundamental instinct, the orienting response. Imagine you're walking through a meadow and a shadow moves in the corner of your vision. What happens? Your previous motion stops. You crouch slightly. Your head turns, your eyes narrow, your ears seem to prick up. Your entire body extends and lengthens to give you a panoramic view. You are looking, listening, sensing. What is it? Is it dangerous? Is it desirable? This is the orienting response. It's the "what is that" reflex. It's how all animals, including us, determine where they are, what is happening, and whether they need to respond. It is the foundation of curiosity, alertness, and the ability to sense opportunity and danger. When this response is healthy, we feel confident and secure in our ability to meet the world. In trauma, this response is diminished. Any stimulus can trigger the frozen trauma response instead of a healthy, curious, "what is that?" Now, if the orienting response determines a threat, the reptilian brain has a simple, powerful menu of options: flee, fight, or freeze. We're all familiar with fight or flight. But the third option, freezing, is just as universal and vital. It is not a failure. It is a brilliant last-ditch survival strategy. For a prey animal, immobility can deceive a predator into thinking the meat is bad. It can prevent detection. It can provide a moment of distraction for the rest of the herd to escape. And it provides a natural analgesic, minimizing the pain of death. No animal judges this response as weakness. A coyote will leave a frozen opossum alone, and the opossum will recover and walk away, unconcerned with how it looked in the moment of terror. But here is the most critical part of the entire cycle, the part we humans have lost: the return to normal activity. Watch a herd of deer. A twig snaps. They freeze, orient, their bodies tense and ready to flee. They determine there is no threat. And then, as they return to grazing, you might see it through binoculars, a slight twitching around the ears, a vibration in the neck, a gentle shudder that moves down through the chest and into the legs. They are trembling, discharging the highly activated energy that was mobilized for an escape that they didn't need to make. They move through this rhythmic cycle dozens of times a day. Activation, discharge, return to calm. Activation, discharge, return to calm. This is the secret. This is what the animals do that we have forgotten. They allow the energy to complete its flow. They shake, they tremble, they discharge, and then they simply let it go. They do not hold on to the story of the snapping twig. They do not obsess over what might have happened. They do not feel shame for their moment of frozen fear. They complete the biological cycle, and in doing so, they remain vital, fluid, and free. Your body knows how to do this. The wisdom of the lizard, the impala, and the deer is alive within your nervous system. It is waiting for you to stop overriding it with judgment and fear. It is waiting for you to grant it the safety and the time to tremble, to shake, to discharge the ancient energies of old threats, and to finally, gracefully, return to the peaceful activity of being fully, vibrantly alive. Imagine a magnificent, powerful river flowing down from a mountain. Its water is clean, vital, full of life and movement. It has a natural path to follow, a journey to complete as it winds its way toward the sea. Now imagine a landslide, a sudden, catastrophic fall of rock and earth that blocks the river's path. The water doesn't disappear, it doesn't just stop. It piles up behind the obstruction. The once clear water becomes stagnant, choked with debris. The immense power that was meant for flow is now trapped, turning in on itself, creating a dangerous, swirling pressure that threatens the entire landscape. This is the moment where biology becomes pathology. This is the story of freezing. In this chapter, we descend into the very engine of trauma. We'll see how the stage is set for that initial life-saving freeze to become a lifelong prison. We'll understand how our brilliant thinking brain can accidentally become the architect of its own cage. We'll explore the vicious cycle of fear and immobility, the haunting principle of as they go in, so they come out, and why this frozen state feels so terrifyingly like death itself. We will see how trauma is cumulative, building like water behind a dam. And finally, we will witness the precise moment a natural biological response twists into a debilitating pathology. The stage is set with our most primitive defense system: fight, flight, or freeze. When we face a threat, our organism mobilizes a tremendous amount of energy to fight or flee. Our heart hammers, our muscles tense, our senses sharpen. We become a being of pure, powerful action. But if we are trapped, if fight and flight are impossible, the body instinctively constricts and moves to its last, brilliant option, the freeze. In that moment, the energy that was meant for a raging counterattack or a desperate sprint to safety has nowhere to go. It becomes amplified, bound up in the nervous system. The frustrated fight response erupts as pure rage. The frustrated flight response gives way to utter helplessness. It's a turbulent, internal storm of terror and power. And if this storm becomes too overwhelming, the system does the only thing it can to prevent a total meltdown. It pulls the main circuit breaker. It freezes, or it collapses. In that freeze, the intense, frozen energy of survival becomes bound together with the overwhelming emotional states of terror, rage, and helplessness. They become fused, locked in a deadly embrace. So why don't we just shake it off like the animals do? Why does this natural response become chronic for us? We can blame it on the neocortex, our magnificent, rational, thinking brain. This brain is so powerful that through fear and over-control, it can override the gentle, instinctual impulses from the reptilian core that are trying to guide us back to safety. The animal comes out of immobility and discharges its energy through trembling because it doesn't have a neocortex to tell it not to. It doesn't feel shame about shaking. It doesn't interpret the trembling as a sign of weakness or a loss of control. But we do. Our thinking brain, witnessing the raw, primal power of the energy beginning to mobilize, gets terrified. It feels like chaos. It feels like violence. It feels like losing our minds. And so it slams on the brakes. It suppresses the tremors. It stuffs the rage back down. It tells the body to get a grip. And in doing so, it overrides the very process that would lead to healing. The instinctual cycle is initiated, but it is not allowed to finish. And that is the precise definition of being traumatized. This creates a devastating feedback loop between fear and immobility. The duration of the freeze in animals is normally time-limited. They go in and they come out. But for humans, the supercharged energy is imprisoned by the emotions of fear and terror. We become afraid of the very feelings that are necessary for our release. So, a vicious cycle takes over. Fear of the rage and terror keeps the immobility in place, and the immobility, in turn, generates more fear. We become trapped between a rock and a hard place, terrified to stay frozen, but even more terrified of what will happen if we thaw. This leads to a crucial biological principle. As they go in, so they come out. Army medics use this phrase. If a soldier goes into surgery feeling terror and panic, he may come out of anesthesia in a state of frantic disorientation. Biologically, he is reacting like an animal fighting for its life after being captured. This explains why women who have been raped, sometimes months or years later, can be seized by an overpowering impulse to kill their assailant. This isn't necessarily premeditated revenge from the thinking brain. It is a delayed, biological, self-protective response of rage and counterattack erupting as they finally begin to come out of the agitated immobility of the original assault. But because this impulse is so frightening, so violent, the traumatized person often turns it inward on themselves. The rage implodes, taking the form of anxious depression, self-hatred, and the varied symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And underpinning all of this is the most profound fear of all, that freezing feels like death itself. Our neocortex knows what death is, and we fear it above all else. The immobility response is a biological imitation of death. And when we feel that death-like sensation, our conscious mind recoils in horror. We avoid it at all costs. We wake up from dreams of falling just before we hit the ground, but to move through trauma, we must be able to uncouple the freezing sensation from the fear of death. We must be able to gently experience the death-like sensation in a safe container and discover that it is a state we can pass through, not a state we are condemned to. When we cannot do this, the effects are cumulative. Each successive experience of freezing and refreezing is identical to the original, but with one terrible difference. The amount of energy summoned increases. It's like the river, with each new rainfall piling up behind the dam. The new undischarged energy necessitates the formation of more symptoms, more complex and debilitating adaptations. The immobility not only becomes chronic, it intensifies. And this is how biology becomes pathology. Pathology, in this light, is not a disease. It is the maladaptive use of any activity, a behavior, an emotion, a physical symptom, designed to help the nervous system regulate its own stuck, activated energy. The symptoms become the organism's safety valve. Pathology is the body's desperate, ingenious, and ultimately tragic attempt to survive its own survival energy. It will enlist anything, an eating disorder, a compulsive behavior, a chronic pain, to contain this force. The frozen energy, the pathology, can feel like a life sentence. But it is not. It is a deeply intelligent, though misguided, act of self-preservation. Your body, in its ancient wisdom, chose to freeze to save your life. And now it holds that energy in check, waiting for the moment it will be safe enough to finally and gently let it go. The dam can be carefully dismantled. The river can be guided back to its natural flow. The biology that became pathology can, with compassion and understanding, become biology once again. After a long, hard winter, there comes a day when the air loses its bitter edge. The sun feels different on your skin, and you notice for the first time the sound of water, a single drop falling from the tip of an icicle, then another and another. It's a slow, rhythmic music, the sound of a frozen world beginning to thaw. This is not a violent process. The ice doesn't shatter. It softens, it yields, it lets go, drop by single drop, returning to its fluid nature, ready to nourish the earth again. This is where we turn the final corner. This is the chapter of hope. We have seen how biology becomes pathology, how the river of our life force can become frozen in a dam of fear and immobility. Now we witness the thaw. We see how pathology can become biology again. We'll revisit Nancy's story with new eyes, understand that it's all energy, follow the profound journey of a young man named Marius, and discover the gentle step-by-step process of renegotiation that can guide us home. The key to this transformation lies in one critical act: uncoupling the immobility from the fear. In trauma, these two are locked together. The fear of the trapped energy is what keeps the energy trapped. It's a perfect self-perpetuating prison. Thawing begins when we can gently, gradually separate the sensation of the frozen energy from the terror of what might happen if it were ever released. Let's look back at Nancy, the woman we met earlier, who suffered from debilitating panic attacks. When she began to come out of her long-held immobility in Peter Levine's office, the rage and terror that had been held in check for decades broke through dramatically. It was volatile, terrifying energy. But then something shifted. The image of the tiger appeared, and in responding to it, in her legs making those running movements, she was able to do something miraculous. She exchanged a passive state of helplessness for an active, successful escape. In that highly aroused state, she made a physiological choice. Her organism learned in an instant that it didn't have to freeze. It could move. It could escape. This was the first powerful glimmer of thawing, but it was dramatic, all or nothing. It worked for Nancy, but Levine knew there had to be a gentler, more gradual way, because at its core, it's all energy. The forces of trauma, the rage, the terror, the helplessness, are not demons. They are biological energies that were mobilized for survival. They are powerful, yes, but they are not evil. They are life force that has become distorted and stuck. The question is not how to destroy this energy, but how to access it, integrate it, and allow it to complete its original, life-affirming purpose. This leads us to a next step. A more gradual, more mythic journey of healing, told through a young Eskimo man named Marius. Marius suffered from anxiety and a weakening in his legs, especially around men he admired. The thread that led back to his trauma was a pair of pants. When he was 8, he was attacked by a pack of wild dogs and badly bitten on his right leg. His most vivid memory was of his new polar bear fur pants, a gift from his mother, a symbol of manhood, being ripped and bloodied, and of his father's face, which he interpreted as anger and rejection. In his healing session, Levine didn't push him directly into the terror of the dog attack. Instead, he started with the positive seed, the pants. He had Marius feel the pride and joy of receiving them. He had him feel his legs inside the pants, strong and powerful, like the hunters in his village. Then gently, Levine guided him to expand this resource. Marius began to imagine himself walking in the mountains, jumping on rocks. He found a stick that became a spear. He began to track an imaginary polar bear. He felt the strength in his legs, the arching in his back as he aimed. He made the kill, and with triumph, he eviscerated the bear. His body shook with tremors of excitement and power. He was, in his imagination, mobilizing the aggressive, predatory energy that had been utterly unavailable to him as a terrified little boy being attacked by dogs. He was building a reservoir of strength. Now, empowered and resourced, he was guided back toward the traumatic moment. He saw the dogs. He felt the weakness in his leg. But this time, instead of collapsing into helplessness, he was able to turn and face them. He grabbed a roll of paper towels, and with screams of rage and triumph he strangled it, symbolically killing his attackers. Then he was able to run. He completed the escape his body had been unable to make years before. Finally, the memory shifted. He saw his father again, not with anger, but with the understanding that his father's face was filled with worry and fear, not rejection. As this realization washed over him, Marius's body broke out in warm, moist beads of sweat, the final, gentle discharge of the trauma. He sobbed, feeling his father's love, and reported a feeling of deep warmth and peace. This is renegotiation. It is not reliving the trauma. It is rewriting the ending with the resources of an adult, allowing the body to complete the biological sequences that were frozen in time. It is a heroic, mythic journey that belongs to all of us. The method that facilitated this somatic experiencing is a gentle, gradated approach. It's like slowly peeling the layers of an onion, carefully revealing the traumatized inner core. It understands that healing takes time. There may be dramatic moments, but the core of the work is slow, gentle, and respectful of the body's own rhythm. From Marius's story, we can identify the essential elements of renegotiation. First, he found a resource, the felt sense of the pants and his strong legs in the midst of his pain. He uncoupled the excitement and joy of living from the fear that had overshadowed it. He became grounded, re-establishing a connection with his legs and his strength. He mobilized healthy aggression, moving from helplessness to empowered action. He completed the active escape and orienting responses that were frozen at the time of the attack. And through this, he was empowered, moving from the identity of a vanquished child to a victorious, competent man. Renewal is encoded in life itself. The moment your skin is cut, your body begins its precise, intelligent dance of repair. The same is true for the psyche and the soul. The pathology of trauma is not a permanent stain. It is frozen biology. And just as the sun's warmth can coax a frozen river back to its fluid state, the gentle, respectful application of safety and understanding can coax your nervous system out of its frozen prison. The energy that was bound in your symptoms is the very energy that can propel you into a new life. It is the tiger, waking from its long slumber, not to threaten, but to offer you its power, its grace, and its vital, untamed life force. You are not broken, you are frozen. And the thaw, my friend, is always possible. There is a rhythm to life, a fundamental pulse that governs everything. The in-breath and the out-breath, the contraction and the expansion, the tide that rushes in and the tide that must inevitably flow back out. This rhythm exists within you too. It's in the way your heart quickens when you are excited or challenged, and then, when the moment passes, it settles back into its steady, resting beat. It's a complete cycle, a wave that forms, peaks, and then dissolves back into the calm sea. But what happens when the wave forms, peaks, and cannot dissolve? What happens when the energy has nowhere to go? This is where we begin our deep exploration of the symptoms of trauma. We are moving from the theory of how trauma gets stuck to the lived experience of what it feels like to carry it. In this chapter, we will understand the core of the traumatic reaction. We'll see that arousal is a natural wave that must be allowed to complete itself. We'll discover that trauma is trauma, no matter the cause. And we will meet the four fundamental forces that form the heart of all traumatic suffering: hyperarousal, constriction, dissociation, and helplessness. Let's start with arousal. Imagine standing at the edge of that cliff, looking down at the jagged rocks below. Feel that jolt, that rush. That is arousal. It is the activity that energizes our survival responses. It is the engine of life itself. Human beings crave this feeling. We seek it out in roller coasters, in thrilling movies, in the challenge of a difficult task. It makes us feel alive. And when we meet the challenge, when we successfully navigate the threat or solve the problem, The arousal completes its cycle. It peaks, and then it actively comes back down, leaving us feeling relaxed, satisfied, and empowered. But for a traumatized person, this natural cycle has become corrupted. Arousal has become coupled with the terrifying experience of being utterly overwhelmed and immobilized. So, the body learns a terrible lesson. Arousal is danger. To feel that surge of energy is to risk being trapped in that frozen hell again. And so, the traumatized person does the only thing that makes sense. They prevent the cycle from completing. They avoid the peak, and they fight the descent. They get stuck in the middle of the wave, unable to move forward or back. The key to healing lies in relearning a simple, natural law. What goes up must come down. We must learn to trust the wave again. Now, you might wonder if the cause of the trauma changes its nature. Does a car accident feel different from a medical trauma? From a sudden loss? On a physiological level, the answer is a profound no. Trauma is trauma, no matter what caused it. The initial biological response to any perceived life-threatening event is essentially the same. It is a generic, hardwired phenomenon throughout the animal kingdom. Your nervous system doesn't have a different response for a falling rock than it does for a speeding truck. It has one response: mobilize energy for survival. This is why, if you imagine 3 different scary scenarios, an airplane engine failing, a man running at you with a gun, a truck careening toward your car, your body will likely respond in strikingly similar ways. Your heart rate will change, your breathing will shift, your muscles will tense. The specific thoughts will be different, but the underlying physiological symphony will be the same. It is in this shared bodily experience that we find the core of the traumatic reaction. And this core is built upon 4 foundational pillars. The first is hyperarousal. This is the seed. It is the nervous system's accelerator slammed to the floor. It's a state of heightened internal alarm. Your heart pounds. Your mind races. You feel jittery and agitated. You can't sleep. It is the body summoning every ounce of its energetic resources to meet a threat. This is a healthy, life-saving response in the moment of danger. But when the energy cannot be discharged, hyperarousal becomes a permanent, exhausting state of being. The engine is always red-lined, and it is only a matter of time before it overheats. The second pillar is constriction. When threat arises, the organism doesn't just ramp up energy, it also focuses it. This is constriction. It is a system-wide narrowing. Your blood vessels constrict, sending blood to the major muscles needed for fighting or fleeing. Your breathing may become shallow and rapid. Your perception itself narrows, like a camera lens zooming in. The hiker who sees a rattlesnake no longer hears the birds or sees the wildflowers. Their entire world becomes the snake. This is hypervigilance. It is a brilliant strategy for immediate survival. But when it becomes chronic, life becomes a very small, very frightening room. We lose the periphery. We lose the joy of the background music of life. We are only able to see the potential threats. When hyperarousal and constriction are not enough to resolve the threat, the nervous system pulls out its more extreme defenses. This brings us to the third pillar, dissociation. Dissociation is the ultimate escape when physical escape is impossible. It is the sense of leaving your body, of watching the scene from the ceiling, of feeling numb, spaced out, or disconnected. In its mild form, it's that feeling of driving home and not remembering the journey. In its extreme form, it can feel like you are not real, or the world is not real. It is a biological mercy, a natural anesthesia that protects you from experiences that are, in the moment, beyond endurance. But when this becomes a habitual way of being, it cuts you off from the very feelings and sensations you need to process in order to heal. You cannot resolve a trauma if you are not present in your own body to complete the cycle. The fourth and final pillar is helplessness. This is the break. If hyperarousal is the accelerator slammed to the floor, helplessness is the parking brake yanked with all its might. This is not a feeling of, "I can't be bothered." This is a profound biological paralysis. The body cannot move, it cannot scream, it cannot feel. It is a total physiological shutdown in the face of overwhelming power. This helplessness is the echo of the freeze response, and it lingers long after the threat is gone, creating a deep, ingrained belief that no matter what happens, you are powerless. Together, these four, hyperarousal, constriction, dissociation, and helplessness, form the core of the traumatic reaction. They are the first to appear. They are the raw materials from which all other, more complex symptoms are built. When they occur together, locked in a self-perpetuating dance, they create an anxiety so profound it can become the very air you breathe. It is the background hum of a life lived in the shadow of an unfinished past. But to know these pillars, to name them and feel their shape within you, is to begin to change your relationship with them. They are not signs of a broken mind. They are the footprints of a survival instinct that did its job, but never got the signal that the job was done. Your body was trying to save you. It still is. And understanding this core reaction is the first brave step in sending it the message it has been waiting for, perhaps for a very long time. The danger has passed. You can stand down now. The wave can finally, gently recede. Imagine an alarm system, a sophisticated, beautiful, and exquisitely sensitive alarm system designed for a single purpose: to keep you safe. When it perceives a threat, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It shrieks into life. Lights flash, bells ring. Every resource is mobilized to meet the danger. Now imagine that the threat passes, the danger is gone, but the alarm doesn't stop. It can't find the off switch. So it keeps shrieking day and night, its powerful voice now a source of torment, its flashing lights now a cause of blindness. What does the system do? It can't sustain this level of energy forever, so it begins to adapt. It redirects the power. It channels the siren's wail into a constant low hum. It turns the flashing lights into a persistent, dull glow in a few key rooms. It finds a way to manage the unmanageable energy, to contain it, to live with it. These adaptations, these redirected signals, are what we call symptoms. In this chapter, we move from the core of the traumatic reaction to the vast and varied landscape of the symptoms themselves. We'll see how they form, we'll understand the self-perpetuating loop that keeps them locked in place, and we'll discover that there is, indeed, a way out of the cycle. When our nervous system prepares for danger, it shifts into a highly energized state. If we can use that energy to successfully defend ourselves, to fight, to flee, to shout a boundary, the energy discharges. The alarm turns off. We feel complete, heroic, satisfied. But if the threat is not dealt with, that energy has nowhere to go. It stays in the body. And here we create a profound dilemma. The body knows it's in danger because it's highly aroused. And because it's highly aroused, it believes it must still be in danger. It's a self-perpetuating loop, a closed circuit of fear. The nervous system cannot sustain this forever without overloading. So, it does something ingenious, if ultimately destructive. It begins to bind and organize that runaway energy into structured forms. These forms are the symptoms of trauma. They are the body's safety valves. The first symptoms to appear are the ones we've already met, the core four of hyperarousal, constriction, dissociation, and helplessness. But from this core, a wider constellation emerges. Think of symptoms as appearing in waves. The first wave often includes a relentless hypervigilance, a feeling of being on guard at all times, intrusive imagery or flashbacks that hijack your present moment, an extreme sensitivity to light and sound, as if the volume of the world has been turned up to an unbearable level. Exaggerated, startled responses, nightmares, and abrupt mood swings that feel like they come out of nowhere. Then, as the system struggles to stabilize, a second wave may develop. Panic attacks, anxiety, and phobias, a mental blankness or spaciness, an attraction to dangerous situations, or the opposite, a rigid avoidance of anything that might trigger arousal. The emotions can become more volatile, with frequent crying or rage reactions that feel alien and frightening. If the cycle continues unbroken, a third wave can settle in, deeper and more pervasive. This is often where we see chronic fatigue, a sense of being the living dead, immune system problems, depression, a feeling of detachment from life and from others. The body itself may begin to express the stuck energy through psychosomatic illnesses, migraines, digestive issues, chronic pain. It is crucial to understand that these are not signs of a weak character or a broken mind. They are testaments to a nervous system that is performing a heroic, desperate act of containment. It is managing an impossible amount of energy the only way it knows how. And this leads us to the most insidious quality of trauma symptoms. And around we go. The symptoms themselves become part of the feedback loop that keeps the trauma alive. Avoidance behaviors are a perfect example. Fearful of another panic attack, you stop driving. Now your world becomes smaller. The lack of stimulation itself can create a void that your nervous system fills with its own internal arousal, which then reinforces the belief that the world is dangerous, so you constrict further, and around you go. There can be a fear of negative emotion. The vital survival energy is so fused with terror and rage that any surge of feeling is interpreted as a threat. So you learn to suppress all intense feeling, including joy and excitement, further starving your system of the natural flow of energy. In an attempt to stabilize, many people turn to substances or medications. These can be vital life rafts, but when used to permanently suppress the body's natural discharge mechanisms, they can act as a lid on a boiling pot. The pressure remains, and the system must find ever more creative and debilitating ways to contain it. It can feel like a treadmill you can't step off of, a loop with no exit. But there is a way out of the loop. The path out lies in the very place the problem began, the nervous system. It is possible to gently and deliberately work with this process, not by fighting the symptoms, but by understanding their language. The way out is to learn to stimulate the nervous system into a gentle state of arousal within a context of absolute safety, and then to guide it through the felt sense to discharge that energy in tiny, manageable amounts, to show the alarm system that it can, in fact, turn off, that the wave of arousal can be felt, and that it can also be allowed to subside. This is not about a dramatic catharsis. It is about a gentle thawing. It's about peeling back the layers of adaptation, one breath, one tremor, one tiny sensation at a time. The journey back is not immediate. But unlike so many other journeys we undertake, this one has a finish, a resolution. Each tiny step you take toward re-inhabiting your body, toward tolerating a little more sensation, toward discharging a little bit of that trapped energy, becomes a resource. It builds a new positive feedback loop, a loop of empowerment, of capacity, of trust. Your body is not your enemy. It is not a chaotic, broken alarm. It is a wise, ancient protector that learned to hold a pattern of energy to save your life. And with patience, with compassion, and with the right kind of listening, it can learn to let that pattern go. It can learn that the war is over, and that peace is finally possible. There is a country that does not appear on any map. It has its own laws, its own weather, its own unspoken rules. The sunlight there is different. It feels thin and cold. The language is one of constant low-grade alarm. To enter this country is not a choice. It is a sentence passed by an overwhelming event. This is the reality of a traumatized person. It is a personal, isolated hell, And from the inside, its logic is inescapable. In this chapter, we will be silent visitors in this land. We will not judge or analyze from the outside. We will seek to understand. We will witness the agonizing search for a threat that can't be found. We'll meet a woman named Mrs. Thayer in her battle with a phantom panic. We'll see how the mind becomes unable to learn new information and how helplessness becomes a chronic identity. We'll explore the cruel phenomenon of traumatic coupling, the pervasive fog of traumatic anxiety, and how the body speaks its pain through psychosomatic symptoms. We'll see the protective yet isolating walls of denial. And finally, we'll understand the last tragic turn this reality can take. Let's begin with the most common and most draining occupation in this country, the search for the threat that can't be found. Hypervigilance is not just being watchful, it is a compulsive, driven need to locate the source of the danger. The nervous system is screaming, "You are not safe," and the primitive orienting response kicks in, demanding, "Where is it? What is it?" But the threat isn't outside, it's the internal, undischarged arousal from a past event. So the person searches and finds nothing. The rational mind, desperate for an explanation, begins to latch onto anything. A look from a stranger becomes a sign of malice. A change in the room's temperature feels ominous. The mind becomes irrational, seeing danger in the mundane. Because the internal feeling of danger is so real, so persistent. This is perfectly captured in the story of Mrs. Thayer. A physician, she is staying alone in a cottage during a fierce blizzard. She is warm, safe, and logically knows she is in no physical danger, yet in the dead of night she is wrenched awake. Her heart pounds in her throat, her body is hot, her hands cold and clammy. She is in a state of pure, objectless panic. She fights an overwhelming urge to flee, telling herself she will die if she runs into the storm. Her neocortex is trying to reason with a reptilian brain in full revolt. She is trapped between the internal tempest of her physiology and the external tempest of the snow. The source of her terror is a ghost in her own nervous system. Living in this state has a devastating effect on the mind's highest functions. The person loses the ability to synthesize new information, to learn. The normal orienting response, which should help us take in and organize new data, is broken. Instead of curiosity, there is confusion. Instead of assimilation, there is overload. A simple task, like organizing a desk, can become a nightmare. A burned-out light bulb can trigger a cascade of frustrated rage and helplessness. The mind, unable to make sense of the new, forgets it, leaving the person stuck in the same dysfunctional patterns, unable to learn the way out. This leads to the cementing of a terrible identity: chronic helplessness. Helplessness is no longer just a feeling, it becomes a core truth. The pathway from arousal to action is severed. Arousal leads directly to immobility. The person may be physically capable of running, but the sense of being paralyzed is so profound that they cannot find the exit even when the door is wide open. They become victims, waiting to be victimized, proving their helplessness to themselves again and again. Then comes one of the most confusing and painful twists: traumatic coupling. This is when one stimulus becomes inseparably fused with a traumatic response. For a war veteran, an increased heart rate from caffeine doesn't feel like caffeine. It feels like the terror of the battlefield. For a survivor of abuse, the natural, pleasurable arousal of intimacy can instantly flip into a panic attack and a feeling of utter helplessness. The body has linked the sensation of arousal itself with the emotional terror of the past. All of this, the endless search, the confusion, the helplessness, the coupled reactions, combines to form the very atmosphere of this country: traumatic anxiety. This is not everyday worry. This is a profound, pervasive sense of impending doom. It's a feeling of being strangled from the inside, The elevated arousal, the symptoms, the fear of the frozen energy itself create an almost constant state of extreme anxiousness. It is the water in which the traumatized person swims, so constant they may not even recognize it anymore. When the mind can no longer contain the energy, the body speaks. It expresses the unspeakable through psychosomatic symptoms. Unexplained paralysis, chronic fatigue, migraines, digestive issues, autoimmune problems, these are not all in your head. They are the trapped energy using any system it can to express its need for release. To survive in this reality, the psyche builds fortresses. The strongest of these is denial. A woman named Gladys was referred to therapy for thyroid issues and mysterious abdominal pain. When asked if she had ever experienced trauma, she said no. Gently probed, she revealed that a few years prior, she had been kidnapped by a man who tied her to a bed in a house filled with knives and guns. "Wasn't that scary?" she was asked. "No," she insisted. "Nothing really happened. This is not lying. It is a biological and psychological protection of such depth that the event is severed from its emotional truth. The energy of the terror is so vast that acknowledging it feels like it would be annihilating. This shapes everything a trauma survivor expects from the world. A child who is repeatedly abused learns that the sound of footsteps means terror, not curiosity. They grow into adults who expect danger, betrayal, and helplessness. Their posture, their movements, their very energy can signal to predators that they are easy prey, thus ensuring the cycle continues. This is the last turn, the point where the physiological symptoms become so entrenched that they begin to drive the personality. The man who was hit as a child feels a compulsive, unconscious urge to hit. The energy bound in his trauma symptoms fuels his behavior. He may fight it with all his will, but until the energy is discharged, the compulsion remains. This is the reality. It is a lonely, exhausting, and frightening place to live, but it is not your forever home. It is a country born from a natural process that was interrupted, and what was interrupted can be resumed. The energy that fuels this terrifying reality is the same energy that can be gently, safely discharged. The body that learned the pathways of fear can, with patience and the right kind of support, learn the pathways of safety. The first step out of this land is the one you are taking right now: understanding. To see the logic of your own suffering is to begin to break its spell. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are a survivor, living in the aftermath of a storm. And even in this strange, cold country, the map home is still written in the language of your own body, waiting to be read. Have you ever found yourself walking the same emotional hallway, opening the same door, only to find the same room you've been in 100 times before? A relationship that feels different, but ends with the same heartbreaking pattern. A job that starts anew but culminates in the same frustrating conflict. An accident that seems to follow you, a strange twist of fate that feels personal. It can feel like a curse, a dark destiny you are powerless to escape. But what if it wasn't a curse? What if it was, in the most tragic and misunderstood way, a deeply biological form of hope? A desperate encoded blueprint for your own healing. This is the profound and mysterious territory of reenactment. In this chapter on transformation, we explore the blueprint for repetition. We will unravel the compulsion to reenact, witness a startling morning on July 5th, understand the vital role of awareness, meet a man named Jack, and see the clear, life-giving difference between being trapped in reenactment and stepping into the freedom of renegotiation. The drive to heal trauma is as powerful and tenacious as the symptoms it creates, and this drive often expresses itself through reenactment. We are inexplicably drawn into situations, relationships, and accidents that replicate the original trauma in both obvious and subtle ways. From a biological perspective, such a powerful and compelling behavior must have a survival function. And it does. I once saw a nature film with 3 cheetah cubs who had narrowly escaped a pursuing lion by scrambling up a tree. After the lion left, the cubs came down and began to play. But this wasn't just any play. Each cub took a turn being the lion, while the other 2 practiced different escape maneuvers, zigging, zagging, scurrying up the tree. They were reviewing the event. They were playfully practicing their defensive strategies, moving from the terror of the event toward a sense of mastery and empowerment. This is the healthy biological route of reenactment. Phase 1 is the successful escape and the discharge of energy. Phase 2 is the playful practice that leads to mastery. Now, let's translate this to a human scenario. Imagine you're driving. A car swerves into your lane. Your body mobilizes in a flash. You zigzag out of the way, your heart pounding. You feel the intense discharge of the escape. You pull over and notice smaller tremors and waves of warmth completing the process. You feel exhilarated. Then you begin to review it. What if I had braked instead? What if I had swerved left? You are playfully in your mind practicing alternatives. You feel empowered. You drive home, tell your family, feel their support, and the event is over. It is history. This is the healthy cycle. But for a traumatized person, phase 1 is incomplete. The vast survival energy was mobilized, but not discharged. So when they enter phase 2, the review is not playful. It is compulsive and terrifying. It comes as flashbacks, nightmares, and a powerful, often unconscious urge to place themselves in situations that feel eerily similar to the original trauma. They are trying to complete the cycle. They are trying to have another chance to get it right. But they are doing so with a nervous system that is still flooded with the undischarged energy of the past. It's like trying to practice your escape with a lion still roaring in the room. This is where we need the vital role of awareness. Without awareness, we have no choice. We are puppets on the strings of our own unresolved physiology. The reenactment is not a conscious decision. It is a biological compulsion. A man named Jack came to see Peter Levine. On the surface, his problem was a strange series of minor accidents, fender benders, slipping on stairs. But as they talked, a story emerged from his childhood. When he was 4, he was run over by a truck. He was dragged for a block. Miraculously, he survived with only minor physical injuries, but the psychological shock was immense. As an adult, Jack was reenacting this trauma. His body was trying to master the event it never resolved. But without awareness, he was just repeatedly re-traumatizing himself, confirming his helplessness rather than transcending it. The patterns of shock are like grooves in a record. Once the needle falls into the groove, it can only play one song. The song of the original event. Reenactment is the needle, stuck in that groove, playing the same tragic melody over and over again. The way out is not to break the record, but to gently lift the needle. This is the difference between reenactment and renegotiation. Reenactment is unconscious, compulsive, and disempowering. You are reliving the trauma, and you are the victim once again. Renegotiation is conscious, gentle, and empowering. It is what we witnessed with Marius. It is revisiting the trauma in a safe container with adult resources and allowing the body to complete the defensive responses that were frozen at the time. It is writing a new ending to an old story. This entire drama takes place in the theater of the body. The stage is your nervous system. The actors are the sensations, the impulses, the fragments of memory, and the audience, the conscious you, must learn to sit and watch the play without rushing onto the stage in a panic. With awareness, you can observe the urge to reenact as it arises, that pull toward a dangerous situation, that familiar tension in a relationship. And in that moment of observation, you have a choice. You can choose to gently guide your body toward a new action, a completed response. You can choose renegotiation. How far in time and space does this blueprint reach? The postscript of this chapter suggests it reaches very far indeed. The unresolved trauma of our ancestors, of our cultures, of our collective history, can be passed down, creating blueprints for repetition on a societal scale. The wars, the cycles of violence, the entrenched conflicts, they are all, in a sense, a form of mass reenactment. But it always begins with the individual. It always begins in the theatre of one body, one nervous system. Your compulsion to repeat is not a character flaw. It is a testament to your body's relentless, unwavering determination to be free. It is a blueprint for healing, written in the messy, desperate language of survival. The pattern is not your prison. It is your path, and with the light of awareness, you can finally read the map and walk the journey not as a victim of your past, but as the hero of your own transformation. There is an ancient alchemical idea that within the basest, most leaden material lies the secret to creating gold, that the substance of our deepest wounds can become the source of our greatest strength. Trauma holds this same paradoxical truth. It has two faces. One face is the one we know too well, the face of hell, the anxiety, the fragmentation, the isolation, the pain that can make life feel like a prison sentence. But there is another face, one often hidden behind the scars. It is the face of a profound and hard-won heaven, a gateway to a depth of compassion, a clarity of purpose, and a vitality of spirit that can, paradoxically, be born because of the breaking, not in spite of it. The journey of healing is not about erasing the past. It is about finding the middle ground between heaven and hell. It is about transformation. In this chapter, we explore this alchemy. We'll see the two faces of trauma, discover that healing middle path, and understand the gentle art of letting it flow through renegotiation. We'll follow the profound healing of a woman named Margaret, ask what really happened to her, and distinguish once and for all between the prison of reenactment and the freedom of renegotiation. We'll explore the mysterious nature of memory, validate the pride of the survivor, honor the courage to feel and see how desire and the help of our friends are the essential guides on this path home. Let's begin with Margaret. Margaret was haunted by a memory, or perhaps something deeper than memory, a sensation of being held down, suffocated, a weight on her chest that made it hard to breathe. It would come over her at night, a terrifying presence. She didn't know what it was. In her session with Peter Levine, he didn't ask her to recall the event. He simply guided her to feel the sensation in her chest. As she focused on it, an image arose of a large, heavy, snarling dog pinning her down. The feeling was one of pure, childlike terror. Levine guided her to stay with the felt sense, not to be swallowed by the fear. He had her feel her feet on the ground, her back in the chair, the resources of her adult body in the present moment. Then he gently encouraged her to look at the dog, to see it. As she did, something shifted. The dog's snarl seemed to change. It wasn't a snarl of aggression, but a grimace of pain. The dog was injured. It wasn't attacking her. It was collapsing on her. In a flash, the true memory emerged. She was 3 years old, running in the yard. The family's large, beloved dog, excited, had jumped on her, knocking her down. In the fall, the dog's leg was badly broken. The weight on her chest was the weight of the wounded, panicking animal, not a predator. What really happened? The objective event was an accident, but her 3-year-old nervous system, overwhelmed and unable to move, had interpreted it as a life-threatening attack. The energy of that terror had been frozen in place for decades. This is the heart of renegotiation. Margaret wasn't just reliving the terror. In the safety of the present, with her adult awareness, she was able to complete the story. She was able to push the dog off, to comfort the wounded animal, to complete the act of self-defense and compassion that was impossible for the 3-year-old child. This is the crucial difference. Reenactment is the unconscious repetition of the helplessness. Renegotiation is the conscious completion of the story with a new, empowered ending. This process forces us to ask, what is memory? Memory is not a perfect video recording stored in a filing cabinet in your brain. It is a living, dynamic, and often creative process. The brain constructs memories, piecing together sensory fragments, emotions, and bodily sensations. When a trauma is frozen, the memory is often not stored as a coherent story, but as a collection of raw, undigested sensations and images. This is why a smell or a sound can trigger a full-body flashback that feels more real than the present moment. The brain isn't retrieving a memory. It is reliving the unintegrated sensory fragments as if they are happening now. This is why it can seem so real, because physiologically, in that moment, it is real. The past is alive in your present tense nervous system. In the face of this, many people cling to an identity. I am a survivor. And this is a vital, powerful stage. It is a step out of the identity of being a victim. But the ultimate transformation is to move from I am a survivor to I am. The pride of being a survivor is a necessary fortress. But you were not born to live in a fortress. You were born to live in a garden. The goal is not to be defined by what you survived, but to be defined by the life that flows through you now. This requires the single most courageous act in the entire healing process, the courage to feel. Not to analyze, not to understand, but to feel. To drop down out of the spinning thoughts and into the quiet, often frightened sensations of the body. To feel the weight on the chest, the tightness in the throat, the trembling in the legs, and to stay present with it, with compassion, as it begins to shift and change. This is where desire becomes your greatest ally. The desire to be whole, the desire to be free, the desire to feel joy again. This desire is the fuel that will keep you going when the process feels slow or frightening. It is the compass that points you toward life, and you do not have to walk this path alone. The alchemy of transformation rarely happens in isolation. With a little help from our friends, from family, from a therapist, from a community, we find the strength we need, the welcoming committee that makes it safe for our soul to return to our body. Healing is not about going back to who you were before the trauma. That person is gone, and that is okay. Healing is about allowing the trauma to transform you. It is about meeting the hell you endured and discovering that within its fires you have been forged into someone wiser, more compassionate, more real, and more deeply alive. The two faces of trauma are not a contradiction, they are a completion. The hellish face is the cry of a frozen past. The heavenly face is the whisper of your possible future. And the middle ground, the path of transformation, is the courageous, feeling, desiring, and supported journey from one to the other. We have walked a long path together, you and I, a path that began in the silent, frozen aftermath of a single human being's suffering. We have learned the language of the body, witnessed the thawing of long-held fear, and celebrated the profound courage of individual transformation. But there is one final question, a question that hangs in the air of our shared world, heavy and urgent. If trauma can so profoundly alter one person, what does it do to a society, to a culture, to a nation? We have arrived at the 11th hour. The hour where we must look at the world we have built and ask, is the violence, the hatred, the endless cycle of retaliation that plagues humanity? Is it our true nature? Or is it perhaps the screaming symptom of a world soul that is itself traumatized? This is our final exploration, transforming societal trauma. We will look at the animal approach to aggression, the tragic distortion of human aggression, and ask the painful question of why we kill, maim, and torture one another. We will see the stark choice between a circle of trauma and a circle of grace, and we will dare to believe that cultural trauma can be transformed. The final question we face is simple and terrifying. Will our story be an epilogue of healing or an epitaph? Let's begin where we always do, in nature. In the wild, aggression is a precise biological tool. It is not hatred, it is not cruelty. For the predator, it is the clean, focused act of the hunt for food. For the prey, it is the fierce, desperate defense of its life. For animals within the same species, it is most often a ritualized display, a show of strength, a sizing up, a way to establish territory or hierarchy without fatal consequence. The loser signals submission, the winner stands down, and the conflict is over. This kind of aggression is time-limited, purposeful, and serves the greater health of the ecosystem. It is part of the balance. Nature is no fool. Human aggression, in its healthy form, is meant to be similar. It is the energy that protects our young, that defends our boundaries, that fuels our ambition and drives us to create. It is the fire of life itself. But something has gone terribly wrong. We are the only species that kills, maims, and systematically tortures our own kind. Why? The answer, I believe, lies in the echo of unresolved trauma. When an individual's traumatic reaction is not healed, the bound-up energy of rage and terror can erupt as violence. This is not the clean biological aggression of the wolf. This is the frantic, distorted violence of the trapped and terrified animal, lashing out at anything within reach. Now imagine this on a societal scale: a war, a famine, a genocide, a generations-long oppression. These are massive, overwhelming events that traumatize entire populations. The undischarged terror, rage, and helplessness do not simply vanish. They are passed down. They seep into the stories we tell, the songs we sing, the prejudices we hold. They become a cultural inheritance of pain. This creates a circle of trauma. An abused child whose rage is frozen becomes an abusive parent. A conquered people nursing their humiliation raises a generation to seek vengeful conquest. The victim, unable to discharge their pain, becomes the perpetrator, creating new victims who then carry the wound forward. It is a self-perpetuating loop of pain, a whirlpool that drags entire generations into its depths. But there is another circle, a circle of grace. This circle begins exactly where the individual healing began, with a single act of feeling. With the courage to acknowledge the wound. A society that cannot acknowledge its own historical trauma is like a person in deep denial. The symptoms will control them from the shadows. Transforming cultural trauma requires the same steps as transforming personal trauma. It requires creating a container of safety where the story can be told. It requires a collective, felt sense, a shared, compassionate acknowledgement of the pain. It requires discharging the old, bound-up energy, not through violence, but through ritual, through apology, through truth and reconciliation, through art. It is the difficult, painstaking work of renegotiating a society's past, so it can stop compulsively reenacting it in the present. This is not a naive dream, it is a biological imperative. We stand at a crossroads. The choices we make now, in how we tend to our individual and collective wounds, will write our future. Will it be an epilogue? A story of how humanity, in its 11th hour, learned to listen to the wisdom of the body, to heal its fractured soul, and to break the ancient, vicious cycle of pain? Or will it be an epitaph? A final tragic marking of a species that was too clever for its own good, that understood the atom, but not its own heart, that could map the genome, but not heal the age-old hatreds passed down through its blood. Nature is no fool. The same laws that govern the impala and the cheetah govern us. Energy that is mobilized must be discharged. What is frozen must eventually thaw, or it will shatter. The transformation of our world does not begin with a treaty or a political campaign, as vital as those are. It begins in the quiet of a therapy room, in the trembling of a single body finally releasing its long-held fear, in the courage of one person to break the chain of abuse for the next generation. Every time you choose to feel, to discharge, to heal, you are not just saving yourself. You are pulling one thread out of the vast, tangled knot of human suffering. You are adding your note to a new song, a song of release, a song of return. You are proving that the circle of trauma is not inevitable. That grace is a choice we can make for ourselves and for the world we will leave behind. The tiger is waking, not just in you, but in the heart of our shared humanity, and its roar is not one of destruction, but a mighty, life-affirming call to come back to our senses, to come home to our bodies, and to finally, collectively, heal. Life can change in an instant. The screech of tires, a sudden fall, the shocking, brutal impact of an accident. In that single, shattered moment, the world as you knew it is gone. In the immediate aftermath, the focus is rightly on the body. Is there a fracture, a concussion, a wound that needs stitching? We are very good at administering first aid to the physical self, but what about the self that inhabits that body? The psyche, the spirit. That part of us can be wounded too, in ways that are just as real, and if left unattended, can lead to a suffering that lasts for decades. This is a guide to administering emotional first aid. It is a map for what to do in the crucial moments and hours after an overwhelming event, to help prevent the shock from taking root and becoming long-term trauma. We will walk through this together, phase by phase, from the scene of the accident all the way through to the gentle beginnings of healing. Our guide for this journey will be a simple, all-too-common scenario. A car accident. Not a catastrophic one, but a frightening, impactful collision. Let's call the person Sarah. Phase the barn. Immediate action at the scene of the accident. The airbags have deployed. The smell of burnt rubber and powder fills the air. Sarah is stunned. Her heart is hammering against her ribs. Her thoughts are a jumbled, racing mess. This is the most critical window. The goal here is not to process the event, but to prevent the nervous system from spiraling into utter helplessness. If you are a bystander or a first responder, your role is to be a calm, grounded anchor. Your voice is the first lifeline. Orientation. Gently help her orient to the present. Use simple, direct questions. Sarah, can you tell me your name? Do you know what day it is? Can you feel your feet on the floor of the car? This pulls the mind away from the internal chaos and into the concrete reality of the here and now. Grounding. Guide her to feel physical sensations. Can you feel the steering wheel under your hands? Feel the seat supporting your back. Take a look around. What do you see right now? This uses the 5 senses to tether her to safety. Reassurance. Use a calm, firm tone. The accident is over. You are safe now. Help is here. The reptilian brain needs to hear this simple, definitive message. Do not, at this stage, encourage her to relive the event or express intense emotion. The system is too flooded. The priority is stabilization. Phase 2 once the person is moved home or to the hospital. The immediate crisis has passed. Sarah is home or in a hospital room. She's physically okay, but she's shaking, pale, and feels disconnected, like she's watching a movie of her own life. The goal now is to support the body's natural discharge processes. This is when the trembling we've spoken of will likely begin. It is a good sign. It is the body's innate intelligence trying to shake off the shock. Normalize the trembling. If she starts to shake, Don't hold her still. Don't tell her to calm down. Instead, reassure her. It's okay to shake. This is your body's way of releasing the shock. It's a healthy, normal reaction. Just let it happen. Create warmth and safety. Wrap her in a blanket. The warmth provides a sense of containment and safety, like the child's hands for the bird. Offer a warm, non-caffeinated drink. The heat is grounding. Encourage gentle movement. If she's able, encourage very gentle, slow movement. Walking slowly around the room, feeling her feet connect with the floor. This reinforces the grounding and helps complete the orienting response. The key is to be a quiet, supportive presence, allowing the biology of release to unfold without interference. Phase 3. Beginning to access and renegotiate the trauma. A day or two has passed. The initial shock has subsided, but Sarah is jumpy, has nightmares, and can't stop thinking about the accident. The frozen energy is still there, looking for a path out. The goal now is to gently access the felt sense of the event without being overwhelmed by it. This must be done with great care. It's like approaching a frightened animal. The felt sense. In a quiet, safe space, ask her to close her eyes and feel the sensations in her body, not the story, not the emotions, but the raw physical data. What do you feel in your body right now when you think about the accident? A tightness, a numbness, a buzzing. Titration. This is the core principle. You only work with tiny, manageable pieces. If the sensation of tightness in her chest is a 10, you gently guide her to see if she can let it be a 9. You're not trying to explode the feeling, but to slowly, gently soften its edges. The sources. Continuously bring her back to her resources. As you feel that tightness, can you also feel your hands resting on your lap? Can you feel the chair supporting you? This dual awareness, holding a little bit of the distress while also holding a lot of safety, is the essence of renegotiation. Phase 4. Experiencing the moment of impact. This is not about reliving the terror. It is about completing the frozen physical responses. Guided by a trained professional, or with extreme self-gentleness, Sarah might be guided back to the split second of impact. The frozen impulse. The question is, what didn't her body get to do? Did her arms want to brace against the steering wheel? Did her foot want to slam on the brake? Did her head want to turn away? Completion in slow motion. In the safety of the present, she can complete these movements. Slowly, consciously, she can push her arms forward. She can press her foot down. She can turn her head. Discharge. As she does this, the bound energy will often release. She might tremble. She might take a sudden, deep breath. She might feel a wave of heat or cold. This is the moment of thawing. The incomplete biological response is finally being completed. To end a scenario of healing following an accident. Let's return to Sarah a week later. She's working with a friend who is gently guiding her. Sarah, the friend says softly, when you think of the moment the other car hit you, what do you feel in your body? A huge jolt, she whispers. And my neck? It feels like it wants to snap back, but it's frozen. Okay, the friend says. Would it be all right to very, very slowly let your head move, just a fraction of an inch in the direction it wanted to go to protect itself? Sarah, with great care, begins to tilt her head forward, just a little. As she does, a violent shudder runs down her spine. She gasps. That's it, her friend says, her voice steady and calm. That's the shock leaving your body. Just let it happen. You're safe now. The shuddering continues for a minute, then subsides. Sarah takes a deep, full breath, the first she feels she's taken since the accident. The chronic tension in her neck is gone. She begins to cry, not tears of fear, but tears of relief. The frozen moment has been met, completed, and released. This is the goal of emotional first aid. It is not to erase the memory, but to drain it of its charged, traumatic power. It is to help the body learn, at the deepest level, that the event is truly over, that it survived, that it is safe to return to the fluid, rhythmic dance of life. You can be the calm, grounded presence for someone in those first fragile hours. And if you are the one who has been shaken, you can offer this same gentle, patient presence to yourself. Your body knows how to heal. You just need to create the safety for it to begin. There is a special kind of helplessness that comes from watching a child suffer. To see them frightened, hurt, or simply not themselves. And to feel that you don't have the words, the tools, the magic key to make it right. A child's world is one of wonder, but it is also a world where things are larger, louder, and more powerful than they are. A fall from a height that seems small to us can feel like a catastrophic plunge to them. A routine medical procedure can feel like a terrifying invasion. And because they often lack the words to describe the storm inside, their trauma speaks a different language. A language of behavior, of play, of the body. This is a guide to listening to that language. This is about first aid for the heart and spirit of a child. We'll learn about the delayed reactions that can surprise us, what to do in the immediate moments after an accident or fall, how to resolve a traumatic reaction, and the vital signs that tell us a child is carrying more than they can bear. We'll follow the story of a little boy named Sammy, understand the crucial difference between traumatic play and healing play, and learn the key principles to gently guide a child back to safety. The first thing to know is that a child's traumatic reaction is often delayed. In the moment of the scary event, they might be surprisingly calm, or they might cry intensely and then seem to recover quickly. We breathe a sigh of relief, thinking, they're resilient, they've bounced back. But the shockwave from the event can travel slowly through their young nervous system. Days, weeks, or even months later, the symptoms can appear. A child who was potty-trained may start wetting the bed. A good sleeper may be plagued by nightmares. They may become clingy or irritable, or develop a new, inexplicable fear of the dark, or of dogs, or of being alone. This is not a regression or a behavioral problem. It is the frozen energy of the past, finally finding its way to the surface. So, what do we do in those first moments after an accident or a frightening fall? The principles are similar to those for adults, but the language is different. D. First aid for accidents and falls. Let's say your toddler, Leo, takes a hard fall off the swing set. He's scraped his knee, but the real injury is the shock and the fear. 1. Be their anchor. Your calm is their safety. Take a breath. Your nervous system will regulate theirs. Scoop him up gently. Hold him firmly, but not restrictively. Your steady heartbeat and calm voice are the first medicine. 2. Name the experience. Give words to what happened. That was a scary fall, wasn't it? You got a big fright. This helps his brain start to make sense of the jumbled sensations of fear and pain. 3. Orient and ground. Help him come back into his body and his environment. Can you feel my hand on your back? Let's look at that knee together. See the trees over there? The sky is still blue. You are helping him uncouple from the internal panic and reconnect with the external safe world. 4. Support, discharge. He will likely cry, and his body might tremble in your arms. This is the healthy, natural release. Hold him and reassure him. It's okay to cry, it's okay to shake. I've got you, you're safe now. Do not shush him or tell him to be a big boy. The tears and the tremors are washing the shock out of his system. Resolving a traumatic reaction. The story of Sammy. Now let's meet Sammy. He was a vibrant 4-year-old who loved the water. One day at the community pool, an older child jumped in near him, pulling him under. He was rescued immediately, sputtering and terrified. That night, the nightmares began. He refused to take a bath. The sound of the shower sent him into a panic. His parents were at a loss. This is a classic delayed traumatic reaction. The first aid at the pool was over, but the trauma remained, frozen inside him. His parents tried to reason with him. They showed him the water was safe. Nothing worked. So they tried a different approach, based on renegotiation. One afternoon, his father sat on the bathroom floor with him, far from the tub. He brought a small bowl of water and some of Sammy's toy animals. "Look," his dad said softly, "the giraffe is so thirsty. Do you think you could help him take a tiny drink?" Sammy, intrigued by the game, cautiously dipped the giraffe's feet in the bowl. "Good," his dad said. "He's just getting his toes wet. He feels safe." This was traumatic play, transforming into renegotiation. Sammy wasn't just repetitively reenacting his drowning, which would look like violently pushing a toy underwater over and over. He was, through the proxy of the toy, slowly and safely reapproaching the water and, most importantly, establishing a sense of control and safety that was absent in the original event. Over several days, the play evolved. The animals waded in deeper. They swam. They rescued each other. Sammy was the director of this new, safe narrative. He was completing the story with a different ending. Finally, one evening, he pointed to the bathtub and said, "My elephant wants a bath." The frozen energy had thawed. He had renegotiated his trauma. How can I tell if my child has been traumatized? Look for changes. A change in sleep patterns, nightmares, night terrors, refusal to sleep alone, eating habits, loss of appetite or sudden food aversions, behavior, unexplained aggression, excessive clinginess or withdrawal, development, regression in toilet training or language skills, play, repetitive, rigid play that revolves around a theme of danger or harm with no resolution. Key principles for renegotiating trauma with children. 1. Safety is the container. Your calm, loving presence is the #1 ingredient. Nothing can happen without it. 2. Let play be the language. Don't rely on talking. Use dolls, action figures, sand trays, and art. Let the child tell the story without words. 3. Follow their lead. You are the gentle guide, not the director. If they want to play out the same scene 100 times, let them. They are building mastery. 4. Look for the frozen response. In their play, what didn't happen in the real event? Did no one come to help? In the play, make sure a rescuer arrives. Did they feel powerless? In the play, let their superhero figure be incredibly powerful. 5. Titrate the experience. If they become overwhelmed, switch to a resource. Your dinosaur is very brave. I wonder what he likes to eat when he feels safe. Weave safety and strength into the narrative. A child's spirit is inherently designed to heal. Their play is not just a pastime. It is the most profound therapy ever invented. Our job is not to fix them, but to hold the space for that innate intelligence to work its magic. We are the blanket. We are the calm voice. We are the safe hands that hold them while they tremble. We are the witness to their courageous journey back to themselves. And in that sacred role, we offer the most powerful first aid of all, the unshakable belief that they can and will find their way back to joy. And so we arrive here, at the end of our journey and at the beginning of your own. We've traveled through the landscapes of the body, the mysteries of trauma, and the promise of healing. And if there is one final quiet truth to leave you with, it is this profound simplicity. You are not one thing. You are not just your thoughts, the constant stream of words and worries in your head. You are not just your emotions, the beautiful and turbulent waves that rise and fall in your heart. And you're not just your instincts, those deep, ancient currents that move beneath the surface. You are all three, the thinking brain, the emotional brain, and the instinctual brain. Three separate voices, each with its own wisdom, its own language, its own vital role to play. For so long, you may have felt at war with yourself, one part trying to silence another. But healing, true healing, is not a battle. It is the gentle, patient work of introduction. It is allowing the thinking mind to listen, with respect and curiosity, to the fears of the instinctual body. It is letting the emotional heart translate the raw sensations into feeling, without being overwhelmed by them. It is the moment the three brains remember they are on the same team, that they are, in fact, one mind, one whole, integrated, and breathtakingly intelligent human being. The goal was never to get rid of a part of yourself. The goal was to welcome every part back home. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this with you. You are not broken. You are a symphony, and every part of you has a note to play. Your wholeness was never lost. It was only waiting for you to listen. If this journey has touched something in you, a recognition, a hope, then stay with us. There are more deep talks like this to come.